You are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.
I don't know. I don't think that they ended up having Chip Zdarsky say, I'm kind of ready to get off this book. Then they went and got Jim Lee and Jeff Loeb to come back. I think it might have been the opposite. And it does feel like things are a bit in a high gear rushing to get to an end. And
well, it makes sense for a DC because it's a Batman book and it's been a mess for a long time now.
It has been a mess. And you don't really hear people talking about it. And if they do,
not in a positive way.
Yeah, not in a positive way. And even then, the negative talk isn't even that much either. You can't even go with the idea of saying, oh, any news is good news, any publicity. I think people are bored with it. I think people have kind of moved on. You have said all along that at points we have liked it. And then something will happen. And then he'll go multiverse, and not even Chip Zdarsky's fault fully, but sometimes things ended up like night terrors and things that ended up kind of stopping it in his tracks, then coming back. And every time he came back, he seemed like he had to go a wacky route to get back. Then his own doing Gotham, where it hasn't been good. It's been a while. I mean, it's been a longer run, but it hasn't been that great. And some of the things in this issue point, as I said, that it ends up feeling like he was told, hey, it's over, get it done in this amount. And he doesn't seem to have the space because there's a couple things that me and you were interested in this story. I don't know we're going to get them. And one of the biggest things would be the brother. I mean, I don't know if we're even going to address that now. It just feels so weird.
How do you not address it, though? It's the whole part, like the whole point of this arc, the idea that Batman has a brother that wants to take half the freaking, Wayne Industries.
But you usually have the guy, because next issue's it. He's done. You usually put things back in the toy box, but we haven't even gotten the toy out.
We've talked about the toy. We haven't pulled him out to play with yet. He's limited edition.
And so after this, the real limited, after this issue, it doesn't feel like Wayne Industries is that much of a big thing. It's weird. I don't know. And I'm with you. How could you not address it? Except maybe it's like, well, he went into the wind. I'm like, what? We never met him. Or it'll just be time. We were duped. I don't know. But that was something that a lot of people rolled their eyes at. You were interested in it, though. You wanted to see who it was.
Obviously.
You wanted a little Lincoln March or whatever. And I'll read the credits in a second, but the big thing was, well, the brother has to be Commander Star. And then that just goes totally off. Now, did you giggle a little when you ended up finding out who it was?
The thing is, I want to giggle. It's just the idea that Commander Star ending up being KG Beast because of the Russian-controlled Court of Owls that are influencing the freaking politics in Gotham. I just look at Commander Star this entire time sitting next to Batman like, you're not the size of KG Beast. There's nothing about you that makes you look like KG Beast.
When you find out some of these reveals, they're just reveals to get the hell out. And they are reveals that you can't say they don't make sense, to the point where how could they make or not make sense when we didn't get any info anyway? But they just feel like out of nowhere. But it is the Batman, which used to be or should be the biggest book, Batman 156. We still put it first, though, because it should
sure
be.
Do.
But
Batman.
It is the Dying City Part 4 of 5. Next issue, just if people don't know, it's going to be an oversized issue. So maybe we'll get an epilogue, and it'll just be something crazy.
Come on, we revealed in the previous issue that Riddler was working with Mad Hatter to have the Mad Hatter tech because it's Nigma. It's not Nigma Tech, it's Nigma Tech. But Mad Hatter has nothing to do in this issue. He was a dupe this whole time and just crying about his hats.
Yeah, he just wants his hats. He's from Lidsville. Eric, remember that Lidsville? You end up where it was funny, too, because when we were talking about it again on the end of the Spotlight, you're like, well, at least we're going to get stuff with Mad Hatter. Like,
son of a bitch.
Yeah, we will. Dying City Part 4 is written by Chip Zdarsky, art by Tony S. Daniel. Looks great. Colors by Timo Murray and letters by Clayton Coles. So you end up having a start where you're going to push this bookend of Commander Star. One of the things about Commander Star that throws me, though, he sends some mixed messages. And at one point I thought may have been, I kind of think that this was going to be something different. I think that the idea of, well, I'll get Russian interference from the headlines, throw it into the Court of Owls, and then that naturally goes to KG Beast. Okay, but at first it felt like what I always say would be interesting, if done well, the idea of seeing, and I thought you'd do this with the Zor-Nar stuff, and kind of pulled back. Would it be interesting to see a Gotham who ends up liking a more violent Batman, a Batman, and not even, I'm not saying, and I'm not even saying that these people who like him are good or whatever, but Batman kind of realizing, oh, you know what, maybe I'm not with the people or something like that.
Passe.
But yeah, or maybe, you would have a play of him. Should I get more of it? He won't, but maybe think of that and then find out that the people really do want just a Batman. Really, or I don't know. He gets pretty violent at points in these issues lately too. But you have Commander Starr, and suddenly, at one point he was yelling that, "Hey, look at this!" And even the crowds, and they all seem to be going. The Russians are yelling, making people think Batman, Bruce Wayne's communist, but they're not. Then they're yelling to tear down, the whole. Western, it just feels weird. It feels all convoluted. The capitalism, like take down the symbols of capitalism, but he's trying to be communist. And I'm like, if I'm in the crowd,
that's because you have the
together,
protesters and the counter protesters.
Well, I'm saying that it seems like they're all the same now, and it seems to be going through only Commander Starr. He yells both at the one point. And I'm like, I don't know where you're going here, but it just ends up being nothing. A lot of the stuff just seems like it ends up by the end of being nothing. So you end up then going off to, Riddler, and he's, gathering up his stuff, and he's basically saying to Leonid, "Hey, I get you, comrade." And that's the point, too. Because of all that, you can't play along with this. You never could. There's no possible way. And he goes, "Comrade." I'm like, what's he saying? And he said, oh, you knew for how long? I knew it all along, but that's not part of the game that I like to play. I like to play the game with Batman.
Which is the worst part of the whole thing, because you have this story to finish out Chip Zdarsky's run where you focus on the Riddler being the bad guy, but the big thing you had in the previous run where Batman was Zur-En-Arrh is that he was going to cure Riddler of his madness. He had all of these villains lined up to do that. Riddler's the only one who got the electrocution or whatever happened that would, cause him not to be the Riddler, not to have this compulsion to leave the Riddlers behind. The idea of making him the biggest opponent that Batman would ever face, and then we move into a next story arc, he's just leaving riddles. He's putting his fucking domino mask back on. He's doing fucking bullshit Enigma shit,
Things, and the weird thing about it, and it's because this run got ended.
And if you are going to end on a Batman, and you decide, you know what, I like the Riddler. I ain't never used the Riddler. You got to make sure that you can do good riddles, because you're going to live or die on those riddles, and you do not have good
Batman
riddles
66. It's Batman 66. And
it's not even Batman 66 at times. I'm telling you, they just start quoting shit at times like, "Yeah, Russian." I'm like, what is this?
It's so bad. I'm telling you, I think that he's trying to be funny with them. It's not. And so here's the other thing of it. It's so weird that he ends up having this Riddler who's not going to have that compulsion, not going to end up, and has stepped up his game. He has the Enigma tech, but he ends up having this deal, and he's going to take over Wayne Industries. All right, you're doing it. But again, I think Chip Zdarsky's winking at one point when Riddler's like, "Man, I miss this. I miss doing these riddles." No, you don't have to end. But again, it's almost like resetting, putting things back into the toy box. But I wouldn't mind having a more threatening,
dangerous
Riddler, and dangerous, even at a point here where he comes off as
one of the smartest men you'd ever have to face at that point. That's scary.
How does he come off as a doofus at one point? But even before that, you do have where Batman goes into, well, I'll tell you why when we get there. Batman comes into the GCPD, starts punching police, and then says, "Hey, Harvey, it wasn't Jim. It was these glasses," throws them at him.
And framed him with these frames now.
I know it's comics, and in this, they just say, "Get the hell out of here, Jimmy boy." Like before, Savage being the commissioner, is he asleep at the wheel? We haven't seen him in a bunch of issues.
At this point in time, the way it is, it seems like Bullock personally released Jim and made sure he got away. I don't think it's the rest of the GCPD that are down for this.
Oh, no, so I think Bullock is definitely,
there could be some ramifications to Bullock doing this.
But again, when you end up having all this said and done, I think that when the shit hits the fan, next issue even, it's like, Savage being commissioner, that's like Bullock doing this is just going to get washed away because there's so much bad going on. But it's just to get Gordon out and about, who goes off to talk to Nakano's wife and Koyuki, and he ends up, and this is actually a well done scene. It makes a lot of sense where he's like, "Hey, baby, I'm free. Look at me. I was controlled. You're your husband, whatever." And she's like, "Get your hands off me, asshole." my son doesn't have a father now. Like, yeah,
my husband's dead. My son doesn't have a father, and you're making this about you. And just like that, I understand her feelings because it is a fucked up situation she's in. But for all the things that Jim Gordon's been through with this like roller coaster ride of a romance, she just turns his back on him, and everything to do with Jim Gordon having a love interest in the former Mayor Nakano's wife completely over one freaking page, like, you know, one issue.
Everything in this issue
back in the toy box
ends up being, we have this, oh man, this is percolating. What's this going to look? Oh, it's over. We have it
you, like, I don't know if anybody else would want to play with it, but just in the background, you already have a commissioner, like a Jim Gordon who's not commissioner in this Batman world. Why not continue on the idea? It's fucked up, and they might have to move past it and like go through some counseling because, you know, under my control, he killed her husband, but having this love interest and even like a stepson going forward, or like, you know, whatever, like a pseudo stepson because they're just dating, it could be good for the Jim Gordon character. But no, we're just going to move away. Never see any of the Nakanos ever again, as far as I'm concerned.
No. Jim Gordon's like, you tell your son to call me daddy, right away.
Wow.
He's such a dick, right? But again, it ends up being something until it just isn't, and not in the way of, well, we'll see what happens there. It just, boom, it's done. It happens again in the issue. I'll just jump forward a little for it.
Koyoki broke up with me. It's time for me to break in the Enigma Tech and help the Batman out. Hopefully he needs my help there.
I wonder if everybody wants him just to be commissioner. I wonder what they're going to do. But in the meantime, you even then have the lady, Rowan, who was working with Riddler. She calls up Batman, thinks it's Bruce.
Wayne,
says, hey, Bruce, building's secure. Everything's okay. But by the way, I was working with the Riddlers. I was fooling you. Remember when I told you to sell your stock?
I had the best intentions, but I was trying to help Wayne Enterprise, but I was, going behind your back. But it's okay. Everybody makes mistakes there, bro.
I'm like, what is going on here? Like, what? You were working with the Riddler and you were trying to dupe me into selling them stocks? Hey, you know what?
In the meantime, I just imagine myself starving on the streets of Gotham because I can't get a job. I steal a loaf of bread and Batman's beating my faces to the ground.
Yeah, so it's like, no fuss, no muss. There's Batman. He's like, forgive and forget, because everybody's going to forgive and forget.
No bread.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, really. It ends up, no, it's because you don't have a shirt on, Eric. You should know that no shirt, no service. But you end
up
again, like this idea of like, that was a big thing. And again, that was the tie-in even to the brother. The idea of, hey, your brother, who we don't know who it is, whatnot, he's a little vain. He's upset because you seem to get all the headlines.
He's going to be a made-up figure. He's not going to be real.
Yeah, it's going to be nothing. And that is the worst. It's the worst. So you have all that going on. So then Gordon's heading off to get revenge on the Riddler. You end up having Batman's
tracking Leon into the tracker previously, and that's at Enigma Tech.
Yeah, and even then, before that, he goes to take down, the Riddler, because he goes into the building. Now we start the riddles. And now it's when you end up having Riddler in another cool thing that doesn't play out, where Leonid says, hey, I Russian, we controlled this. And he's like, I don't care. I'm rich, bitch. Like, he's like, I'm just going with this money. This is awesome. I have this money. But again, why then go back? I know it's classic, but go back to, he's out of, the riddle game here. Maybe he's just getting warmed up, but you start in with these, it's like these death traps that aren't death traps. I can barely understand the layout of this as he's running into the Enigma
you run
building.
Into the Enigma Tech right there, and you have one of those big question marks, like you have to get a goddamn trophy, like it's one of the Arkham games.
Yeah,
I lost my mind just having flashbacks to that.
Yeah.
But when he runs in, he comes across this death trap where it's almost like Jigsaw or the Saw series, where Mayor Nakano's former assistant's
just in the lobby?
Yeah, it's just in the lobby. She's hooked up to some pseudo death trap. We don't know what it does, but I'm a helpful pouch of fluid. What am I? Assistant! And that releases Mayor Nakano's former assistant because he got the assistant right.
Normally, these riddles would be, and they tend to go with it later, is the idea of, finding something. He just runs into her. I want to see, as the camera pulls out, that the people at Enigma Tech, they're just going about their day. I mean, at this point, shit's hitting the fan, but not really there. And they're like, oh, can I help you, Batman? He's like, wait a minute, this death trap is first. But just the idea that he runs into the death trap and has to tell Riddler the solution, and it's assist. I'd be like, what does Wayne Gretzky think is more, equal to a goal? Oh, an assist.
An
Everybody
assist.
knows that. You could play the deal of having Wayne Gretzky having more assists than anybody had points, but I think that might not be the thing yet. But you end up where all this going on, and it's assist, and then he moves on.
To his unwitting assistant, the increasingly Mad Hatter, did you like my modifications? I've outfitted all of my security with those glasses. You have 5 minutes, Batman. Which floor is he on? Or would you rather stop the terrorists from blowing up buildings? Which, even the idea of the terrorists blowing up buildings, we know that there was a bomb threat situation at Wayne Industries, but like, this idea of the bombs being placed, this feels like such an afterthought that doesn't even like come across as something that like I knew was going on when I jumped into this issue.
No, and then I think it's Rowan who actually brings it up then and says, oh, they're doing these bomb threats to get the stock price down so that Nigma can buy it. But again, he was going to go through the brother.
Tell me what Victor's favorite number is. And even it's like, even you thinking about Victor, because we just recently had Two-Face's #1 issue last month where Victor Zsasz was featured. So when you saw Victor, your mind immediately went to Victor Zsasz. But what we mean is Victor Fries, and his favorite number is 32. The freezing. Thank God he wasn't talking Celsius, so we'd never find the answer.
I actually thought of that after me and you talked later that night. I think I might have been talking to Gray or whatever, and I said, wait a minute, what if we use Celsius? We'd be in big trouble. But in the meantime, I wanted Mr. Freeze to show up and was like, actually, my favorite number's 2. Like me and Nora, like I really
like
don't go
7.
that far. Now, in that, and then Two-Face comes out and it's like, I'm the 2 guy. Get the hell out of here. But when
I call dibs.
When you say Victor, it's for some reason, I just go with Victor Zsasz. I think of Mr. Freeze, Victor Zsasz. It makes sense, but the idea was just an odd deal. And seriously, besides the idea of Celsius, which is funny because Chip Zdarsky is Canadian, but the idea, that is such a lame riddle.
It is.
It is like, it's the Riddler. I'm telling you, he's out of his game. You could play the idea that he's not compelled by these and he's going through the motions, but he's like, man, I miss this.
Batman fashion riddles that kids would solve on the back of popsicle sticks after they're done eating them.
Yeah. It's Encyclopedia Brown. Actually, yeah. Encyclopedia Brown gets a little more technical. I read those now, and I'm like, I don't know what the hell's going on with this.
Nobody remembers those.
Like, I'm like, yeah. So, but it is like the pop, but probably don't even remember that either. But you end up, they are lame. They are lame, but I don't know if they have that branding or whatever anymore. But Mad Hatter just is like, oh no, this sucks, and you end up having Batman tell him like, oh, go and get help.
And in the meantime, on the way of doing all of this, you would think with the Court of Owls being involved again, because at one point, when the New 52 started, biggest bad the Batman's ever faced. Every time they've come back, they've always been diminished, and like they're just watered down to the point where nobody cares about the Court of Owls anymore. I thought maybe with the idea of them coming back here, again, a pseudo-brother character coming out of nowhere, very Lincoln March-esque, I thought maybe we're going to do something to elevate the Court of Owls for the first time in a long time, and we just have random goons now wearing the elite owl mask instead of having actual talons. I'm like, after Dark Day, like, was it Dark Day's Metal or whatever the first metal was called?
Just Metal and then Death
Dark Knight's Metal, whatever it was. But like, when you had that going on with the idea that the Court of Owls had the Electrum, they're doing all these different things. The Metal's doing the mantling wagon to get to the Dark Matter. Yeah, exactly. Making Bruce the Wagon. All this bullshit that Scott Snyder likes to say at times, it really drives me nuts because it just like swirls around in my head.
The wagon.
But when the door, the window, the wagon, whatever it was,
Eric, you made me spit my coffee out.
You don't have talons anymore. Why can't we spend time elevating the Court of Owls by getting their biggest freaking muscle back, the talons? Let's get some Electrum and some dead bodies.
So,
make
Eric,
them come back to life.
What you're saying to me is that what you could have had here is that Batman is going up to the server room. Talons are going to kill him, and in one fell swoop, he hits the cryogenic tubes, which would be the thing that stops the talons. It's perfectly set up. You could have done this, and you could have went, oh, shit. Like, a lot of people, when they think of the Court of the Owls, they're just going to think about the Scott Snyder and then nothing else. Yeah. Because me and you talk about it a lot. The Court of the Owls is a joke. It became the idea in the Green Arrow book that the Court of the Owls was getting random hobos and putting them in a labyrinth and having, fight games.
And I don't even remember it being a labyrinth like we had in the depths of Gotham. It was just the underground sewers. Like, all right, like it's labyrinthine enough. It's a sewer.
They might have put like one board up that you don't go down there, but they become a joke. So when people hear us say that where we want them elevated, they certainly need to be. Luckily for DC, most people think of the big picture. Oh, the Court of the Owls is awesome. They're cool. But they haven't been anything in so long, and this would have been a way for the one thing that might be hitting is get the Court of the Owls back. And you could have had it. Who is this mysterious brother who then does disappear and possibly runs the Court of the Owls? But instead, you have Russian interference.
Right?
Yeah, the Shadow Hand.
I don't know.
And Nyssa, Al Ghul. We got them all, Eric. But you end up with this. It's so lame. Like you said, it's let's get the Court of the Owls, but then turn it into just Russian interference and hacking.
The Court of Owls have nothing to do with this at all. We have a guy who's the Court of Owls, but also Russian, who's working with the Russians. So mostly it's just no Court of Owls. You might just have Russian goons in Court of Owl masks. That's it. They're at Mardi Gras. They're playing dress up.
And Eric, you want to go worse? It gets to the point where Riddler says they have his tech glasses that are making. They're not even mean or violent. They need the tech glasses. These are lame asses. And so when you have that, it does feel like, again, if you want to go Riddle or, a deal, it's Chip Zdarsky, Court of Owls plus Russia plus KG Beast. That equals nothing.
No, at this point in time, the way the Court of Owls are, your riddle is just Court of Owls, and the answer is who?
That would be good. See, you're doing it, Eric. So he ends up and really, these guys in the masks, they're just lame. They're lame. Yeah. They're just there.
Just like Mad Hatter.
Yeah, they're just there to cause a bit of a, obstacle for Batman to go through. And then you end up, so you have a reason for Jim Gordon to show up and hits one of the guys in the back of the head with a fire extinguisher. Knocks him out. Now it's starting to remind me, remember, was it Prometheus who got taken down in the by a taser from a random lady in a museum? Not that Jim Gordon isn't, a badass at points, but
he was Batman.
Yeah, it's still. I actually thought that was going to be brought up, and if Chip Zdarsky wants to have fun, because at this point, Batman's helped up by Gordon, who Batman says, "I'm sorry, I didn't believe you," and he's like, "Don't worry, you did your deal, you saved me. I'm going to go get Riddler," and Batman gives him the utility belt. Now, again, something that if you're going to have fun, you can have a lot of fun with that. You could even have a lot of badassery, but you don't do anything really with it. He has a couple smoke bombs and things. But in that, when Batman says, hey, can you use this or whatever, he should have just said as he was running, don't you remember? I was Batman once. It would have been so cool.
Yeah, but you had a buddy costume.
I know that, and that's what I would want Batman to say then you were in a buddy costume. But even just the idea that he turned around and goes, don't worry, I was Batman once, and then goes off. I know people didn't like that, but it would be kind of a cool reminder. It'd be a really cool callback.
It's a piece of history.
Yeah, so in the meantime, Batman is going to try to figure out this cryptology hack.
Sadly, he's almost 10 years old as well.
I know, it is. It's bad. But you have Gordon who's just going to go and beat the crap.
Oh, yeah, Batman has to go after Lady Cole, the Court of Owls, the Russians, everything to do with this whole thing outside Riddler, what Jim Gordon holds down the fort here, because Lady Cole has taken the cryptography code that Enigma had in his server room that is going to allow the Russians to uncode anything that is secretive in America.
Yeah, and I know people have their different opinions and things like that, but the idea of Russians and nuclear, it just doesn't feel like Batman. It just it feels too big. It used to in the 80s. Yeah, but now it just feels like it's out of nowhere here. When in an issue or a series.
What feels out of nowhere is the big bodyguard that Enigma has. It looks like she's on that Amazon essence that we had in Birds of Prey this week.
You like her? No, what else? And this is where I said that Riddler's an idiot. You end up where he's laughing it up. Oh my God, this is awesome. Like, yeah, I got you, Batman. I tricked you. You're done. And you have Batman. Don't you get it? You just gave the Russians the nuclear codes. And Riddler's like, oh, shit, I did? Oh, no. And he's like all upset. But I didn't. And then starts helping Batman. I'm like, Riddler, you didn't think of this? Like, again, you really didn't have a lot of control about it, but you're just cackling about it until he just says, the Russians are going to blow up everything. He's like, oh, shit. Like, yeah, I guess so. And I'm going to be to blame. I'm like, it's a weird call, but then he goes up to the server. And that's where, again, I think that it is the play Chip Zdarsky. There's not enough room to go through other riddles about what server has the crypto thing and whatever. So he just tells him. Batman goes, it's gone. And he's like, oh, he got it. I have to go get him. So you go with then Jim Gordon, who goes up. And I do like when he's beating the crap out of Riddler. And he's just like, why are you beating me up? And you made me kill that Nakano. And he's like, yeah, but I didn't make you sleep with his wife. And it's like, it's such a good shit talk at the last second as he's getting beat up. But again, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
And the worst part is, though, because you had this whole thing where he's fighting Nigma's bodyguard, Rhonda. He's fighting Nigma. He ends up cutting Nigma's leg with a batarang after he takes out Rhonda. And at that point, he realizes there's a bomb right next to them in the building. So, Anthony, we have like 9 seconds left on this bomb. And then you see Jim trying to get a hobbling Nigma, like, as we try to get out of the way. And I say, you see the top of the building explode. I'm like, yeah, those guys are dead. There's no way in those 9 seconds from getting up and having him hobble a little bit that they survived this bomb that was next to them.
And if you went and did a play, again, if you had more time maybe or whatever, with Gordon running up the stairs maybe in some of the Court of the Owls, I would have liked to have him like going through some of the nonsense of that, utility belt. Like he grabs the shark repellent, thinks, I don't need that, and ends up doing something, but then actually reveals something that might end up helping with that bomb. But he doesn't. He goes and beats the crap out of Nigma. Then he cuts him, which is going to screw him over, and then takes down the bodyguard as well. And it's just everything is thrown at you. Everything is so fast paced to the point where you can't really sit in a scene, but it doesn't matter because all the stuff ends up being just push forward, just to push forward.
It's so weird too because Batman's supposed to be tracking Leonid right now, who has the cryptography device. But then he's thinking to himself, like we have Commander Starr in the heart of the city, talking about how we have to end the communism that's going on. We've got to tear the city down to build it back up. So he's leading this revolution in downtown Gotham. Batman decides, like, wait a minute, that last riddle that Riddler gave me, he's like, not in pounds, but I measure weight. I won Beauty's love, which started as hate. The Beast won Beauty's love, and for the first part, he's talking about kilograms, abbreviated as KG. Oh my God, KG Beast, I have a rematch I have to do with the KG Beast.
I like that he goes Fahrenheit at one point, then pulls over and goes kilogram. He doesn't even. Why? Who would come up with kilograms?
Why would you stop going after Leonid, who could take down all of America, to go have a rematch with the KG Beast in downtown Gotham?
This is my life. This is me, ADHD. This is me. Like, I'm going to do this video, and then I'm like, you know what? I have this. The idea again with the kilograms, though. What if he came up with pounds? What if he's like, ounces? He's not
Pounzo.
And he's like, ounces, Beast, okay, it's Captain Atom. I don't know what you'd end up with. Like, these things are so poorly done to then have him just solve them in a way that you're like, what? Like, this is ridiculous. But he's like, oh, KG Beast. And when I read that and like Commander Starr's KG Beast, I'm like, what you say?
Aww.
Like, really? Like the idea of me and you like KG Beast. KG Beast, another character
like KG
that
Beast.
needs to be elevated. I mean, when KG Beast showed up in that Batgirl run where he had the golden living gold arm, just a joke. He needs to come and get, some oomph to him. Not like this. This is just out of nowhere.
The best thing he's done was ruin DC for a while by shooting Nightwing in the head nonsensically.
And yeah, worse. And then, getting killed. And so, he wasn't killed, Eric.
No.
Later. So
he wasn't killed in 10 Nights of the Beast either, supposedly.
No, that's true. They always have to go back and say that. So with this, again, I'm giving Chip Zdarsky some credit here, saying that this couldn't have possibly been the original idea. If it was, boy, you shouldn't be on this book. This is the biggest book, and you're just, it's a joke. It's a joke how lackluster these reveals, and there's like 6 of them, and it's every bit of this. You turn a page and get punched by the nonsense fist, and you're like, really? And so I want to know the chicken and the egg. Did you come up, because Leonid is a Russian name, so did you come up with the Russians are doing the whole deal with the Court of the Owls, and that's where you got KG, or was it the opposite? I want to have KGB so that it's just bad. And again, he's going down to face off against KGB. Just as an aside, seems to have lost the city again. Everybody's there, guns are rootin' tootin'. In the meantime, you have a Russian
tear this mother down.
And the way that they're playing it too is you're going to go with the server codes or whatever. Don't tell me that Leonid has to get on a plane and fly to Mother Russia to get those codes. Those codes are already sent. He's got there on a private line and he's sending them over. Just please. You're going too big in a nonsense way to make anything make sense. And I think Batman's going to come here and do an Indiana Jones. You're going to have KG Beast talk a bunch of shit and then he's going to punch him once and that's it. And he's going to go off to get Leonid. That's it.
That's what Indiana Jones does?
Well, when, the guy was going to fight him with the sword, and then he just ends up pulling the gun out and shoot him. Batman doesn't shoot, so he has to punch.
Again, when you're talking about the Indiana Jones, I'm like, Batman's going to pull out a gun and shoot him?
No,
he
can't do that. He's going to punch him. He's going to Guy Gardner him. And then Guy Gardner's going to be outside. One punch! you end up to where suddenly some of the people in the crowd, I think I see Lenin, they're Stalin, all these people, this whole thing is Russian, and it's Stalin as well. It's Stalin, me having a good time. Right, Eric? A little wordplay. I got you. By the end of this, though, I just shook my head and laughed pretty much like, that's what you're going with? Like, this is what you're ending
Russian
your run.
interference.
Most people, again, it's a very divided
Some sort
run.
of court of vows.
You have to end strong. This is not it. This is
it's not at all.
And again, I bring this up a bunch of times. I don't know if I said it to you, but Robert Kirkman doing The Walking Dead, he ended up saying, because, I mean, Eric Shea said when that came out, a black and white indie comic with zombies are over. The zombie craze is over. So he said in one of the new deluxe editions in the back, you have him write things and show his outline. He said, I was always an arc, like if anything got canceled, if they said, listen, we're done, he was always a couple issues from being able to end it. He always had an exit strategy. Each issue he'd write and think, okay, if it was going to end now, I'd have 2-3 issues. Boom, I'm out. Nobody seems to do that anymore. And in this day and age,
it's always a surprise to the writer. Oh my God, shit, I better end this for good.
Yeah, some of them do that on a pre-6-issue mini. They're like, what? This isn't 8? No, asshole, we announced the 6. But in the meantime, nobody's on a book that much. They're not long to be on the book. They're not on the book that long anymore. A lot of writers come in and out. One of the bigger ones recently was Joshua Williamson on that 100-issue run of The Flash. Tom King on that like 85. He claims he got to that 100 with all the other stuff, but whatever. But that isn't being done that much anymore. No. People are in and out. You can't just have, and this run has been so disjointed. I said sometimes not from Chip Zdarsky, but it's had some wacky ideas that you almost are expecting by the end of what would be his run, things would be like, oh my God, that's a cool way to tie that back in. Oh, the Zoran Arcept, like, you expect to have that almost like we say a comedy routine. At the end, it comes all back and everything is cool, makes sense. It's been so weird that I don't think, but at least this is nothing. This is I don't know. I don't have an exit strategy. I'm just going to make up shit. And it's weird. And it's something that shouldn't be in a Batman book. But I think that this puts the nail.
I don't think it shouldn't be. The idea shouldn't be in the Batman book. But the way it's been done is not very good, especially when you have to start the story off by going against what you specifically did in the previous arc.
I'm just saying you should take a little more care. I mean, this is the big book. But the idea of this is the Batman book hasn't been great for a while. Even before people are kind of losing interest in it. It's not the biggest
But it's the Batman.
And so that is why you get Jim Lee and Jeff Loeb back. That's a big wow factor deal. That's something that became more news than just wackadoos like me and you talking about it. This became big news. They're legitimately trying to get the hype back for their biggest character.
So funny, the idea of a Hush 2 having this, because Hush, like Court of Owls, has fallen so far since Hush came out.
I don't know if they're excited. Gabe claims that nobody's excited at all, and this Hush 2 is going to be a bomb. I think he's fooling himself. I think it's going to be pretty big. But again, I think that should be that Kickstarter of saying, and I don't mean the site, the idea of we're getting back to big things. We're getting back to Batman meaning something. He's not just going to be a putz that loses a city all the time. They're going to do. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to Hush 2. And in fact, we ended up, me and Matt Razor, as a side note, at the last second, we called an audible at the line on the goal line deal, where we're not doing the Doomsday stuff just yet. We're doing Hush. Right. We're going through Hush. The only reason I thought that we'd do that, we have like 12 weeks until it comes out. We have the exact time to go through the main book of Hush. So we're going to do that.
And you didn't have to read it on your own again?
Well, that's the thing. It serves the purpose then when we get Hush 2. I'm like, I just read it. But that was something that we decided at the last second. So I thought it was pretty cool. But after that, we're going to go. And even though we usually flip back then to Marvel after DC, we're going to do the Doomsday stuff. Because I already started reading that. And it's awesome. It's really good. Yeah. But in the meantime, here we are again. Batman. It just feels, again, like this is a rushed ending to something that didn't have an escape route, and it just is not great.
And all the stuff that led up to this point feels like it was worthless.
Yeah, that's what happens. So what would you give it?
I would give this a 5 out of 10, but I love the art throughout this whole thing. It's just a story, just is a convoluted mess that does not leave me with a lot of inspiration to keep on reading this era of Batman.
I like the killing.
Yeah, I like the killing too, Eric. I got really scared that you were going to give it an FU5, but the art's too good. I'm going 5 as well. I'll just go straight 5. And really, it's just me shrugging my shoulders like, what the hell happened here?
Weird Science is the revolution.